when void light mingles with blood and sorrow. Epilogue. Hope in the void light. The void core pulsed like a slow heartbeat, washing the chamber in violet light that made every shadow look alive. Nox Verum's deepest hall was quiet at this hour, quiet enough that even the hum of the crystal sounded like it was holding its breath. The Void Master stood closest to it, hands clasped behind his back, long pale horns catching the glow. He had the posture of someone who had not slept in several days and had no intention of starting now. He did it again, he said without turning. A full transformation. Brief, but enthusiastic. From the far side of the chamber came a low groan. "That boy is going to give me gray horns," the Duke muttered, rubbing his temples. "Do you know how hard it is for a Void Kijin to get gray horns? It's practically a medical anomaly." The Void Master sniffed. "Your horns have been gray since the last century." "That was fashion," the Duke snapped. "This is stress." The Void King stepped between them, tall and calm, his presence settling the air like a warm hand on a restless shoulder. He approached the Void Core and placed his palm against its surface. Inside, faint and flickering, the image of a sleeping infant curled in a blanket of light. "Vareth, his son. He's growing," the king murmured. "Faster than we expected." "Faster than we can manage," the Void Master corrected. "He has manifested every void discipline we know. Density, gravity, telekinesis, intangibility, and the transformation." Yes, the transformation," the Duke said, waving a hand. "He turns into a giant purple monster. We've all seen it." The king's mouth twitched. "He is a child. He is a catastrophe," the Duke countered. The Void Master cleared his throat. "Majesty, with respect. If we do not intervene, his power will outgrow his body, his mind, his will. He could become a danger to himself and to all of Nør Vorgul." The king finally turned from the crystal. His eyes were tired, but warm. "That is why we treat him as a child," he said. "Not as a prophecy. Not as a weapon. Not as a curse." The Duke sighed. "Brother, I know," the king replied. "We need a plan, and he needs to learn control and patience," the Duke said. The king ignored him and stepped closer to the Void Master. "We proceed with the ritual." The Void Master blinked. "You are certain?" "Yes." "You want to share void magic with the world," the Duke said slowly, "so they won't fear him when he grows into what he must become." "So, he will not stand alone," the king corrected. "So, when he changes the world, they will understand him." The Void Master hesitated. "Majesty, the elders will not approve." The king's expression hardened. "The elders do not raise my son." "Ido." The Duke exhaled, shoulders slumping. "Then we prepare. But if anything happens..." The king placed a hand on his brother's arm. "You take him. Hide him. The world is still now ready." The Duke swallowed. "Promise me you won't need that plan." The king didn't answer. He clenched his jaw. He did not want to need the plan either, but he wasn't stupid. The Void Core pulsed again, and the infant inside shifted, tiny fingers curling as if reaching for something unseen. The king's face softened, the weight of centuries melting into something painfully human. "Aside from you two, my people, he is all I have left," he whispered. "And I love Vareth more than this kingdom, more than the void, more than my own life." The Duke looked away, jaw tight. The Void Master bowed his head. "Then I will make the ritual flawless." The king nodded. "Carefully, old friend. This magic must be perfect." The Duke snorted. "Perfect? With our family?" The boy transformed into a void beast. The king smiled faintly. "He takes after you and old Uncle Scython." Blasphemy. Uncle Scython blew himself up cooking food. The Duke shot back. The Void Master stepped forward, shaking his head, adjusting the runes around the Void Core. "If we succeed, the world will see the void as a gift. A blessing, not a threat." "And if we fail?" the Duke asked. The Void Master paused. "Then let us not fail." The king looked at the crystal one last time. The infant yawned, tiny mouth opening in a soft sound that echoed faintly through the chamber. The king's voice cracked. "He deserves a childhood. He will have one," the duke said quietly, "even if I have to chase him through every mountain in the north." "You will," the king said. "He is fast." "He is already uncontrollable," the duke snapped. "And already faster than me, and definitely faster than you," the king replied. The Void Master sighed. "Gentlemen, please. The Void Core is listening." The king placed his hand on the crystal again, letting the warmth of it seep into his palm. "Tomorrow," he said. "We begin tomorrow." The Void Master extinguished the Void Core's glow, plunging the chamber into darkness. It was the last peaceful night the Void Kingdom would ever know. Prologue Part 1. The Boy and the Mountains. The northern mountains were a world of stone and silence, a place where the wind carved its own language into the cliffs and the snow never fully melted. It was here, in a lonely hermitage carved into the mountainside, that young Vareth lived with his uncle, Duke Vaylor, the last refuge of the Voidborn. The boy sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the flickering violet flame in the hearth. It danced in strange patterns, bending toward him as if listening. He ignored it. He was too busy scowling at his uncle. "I don't like that story," Vareth muttered. Vaylor, tall and elegant even in exile, folded his arms. "You are not meant to like it. You are meant to remember it." "I don't want to remember it. It will remember you." Vareth glared at the floor. "It's sad." "It is history," Vaylor corrected gently. His voice was soft, precise, the whisper tone of Void Ogres. "And history does not soften itself for our comfort." The boy kicked at a loose pebble. "I miss Rajesh." Vaylor sighed. "I know. He was my best friend. I know. Why can't I see him?" Vaylor knelt, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Because the world is not safe for you. Not yet." Vareth's jaw tightened. "Because of the Gloom March." "Yes." "And the traitors." "Yes." "And the bishop." Vaylor's eyes darkened. "Especially the bishop." The boy looked away, blinking hard. "I still don't like the story." Vaylor ruffled his hair. "Then grow strong enough to write a better one." Vareth didn't answer. He simply stood, walked to the doorway, and stepped out into the cold mountain air. He always did this. Wander the cliffs, climb the ridges, explore the world he wasn't allowed to touch. Vaylor watched him go, worry etched into every line of his face. "Be careful, little behemoth," he murmured. "The world is watching." The mountains were Vareth's kingdom. He knew every ledge, every hidden path, every echoing cavern. He moved with a strange grace for a child, light, silent, almost floating. Sometimes he did float, without meaning to. Today, he wandered farther than usual, following the sound of rushing water until he reached a narrow cliff overlooking a deep ravine. A waterfall thundered below, mist rising like breath from a sleeping giant. He wasn't alone. A girl stood on the opposite side of the ravine, red-skinned and tall for her age, with long dark hair braided down her back. Her eyes glowed faintly crimson, Blood Ogre eyes, sharp and ancient. She wore a tunic of scaled leather and carried a curved bone blade at her hip. She noticed him instantly. "What are you?" she demanded, voice rich and ceremonial, like every word was part of a ritual. "You walk like mist. You smell like storm." Vareth blinked. "I'm a little bored today." "That is not an answer." "You didn't ask a question." She frowned. "I did. I asked what you are."
"Oh."
He shrugged.
"I'm Vareth."
She stared at him, unimpressed. "Names are not what. Names are who." "Well, I'm both."
She stepped closer to the edge.
"You are strange. You're a girl." Her eyes widened. "A girl?"
"Yeah."
"A strange ogress. You talk like you're doing a ceremony." "That is how blood speak."
"Why?"
"Because it is proper." "That sounds exhausting." She bristled. "You insult my people?"
"No."
"Just you." She stomped her foot. "Fight me."
"What?"
"Why?" "Because you have offended me." Vareth sighed.
"Fine."
They met in the center of the cliff, feet skidding on loose gravel. She swung first, fast, strong, confident. He dodged without thinking, slipping past her like smoke. She swung again.
He ducked.
She lunged.
He sidestepped.
She froze. You are faster than me. When I move without void, yeah. Saw thee. Do not apologize, she snapped. Be proud. You are strong. He blinked. You're weird.
She grinned.
And you're fun. She lunged again, but this time it wasn't a fight, it was play. They chased each other along the cliff, laughing, slipping, scrambling over rocks. She was fierce and wild. He was quiet and quick. They were opposites, and somehow that made them fit. When they finally collapsed on a flat stone, breathless, she looked at him with new eyes. I am Sahr'el, she said, Princess of the Crimsonborn. Vareth nodded. I'm Vareth. Vareth what? Just Vareth. She frowned. Everyone is something. He hesitated. I used to be something. She tilted her head. And now? Now I'm hiding. Her expression softened. I know hiding. My mother keeps me in the cave palace. Says the mountains are dangerous. Are they? Yes, she said proudly. That is why I sneak out. He laughed. You're weird. You already said that. I meant it twice. She shoved him lightly. You're strange too. But I like strange. He smiled. The scream shattered the moment. A shrill, piercing cry echoed across the cliffs. Sahr'el leapt to her feet, blade drawn. Blood harpies, she hissed. Many. Vareth felt the air shift. Shadows circled overhead, winged shapes with talons like hooked knives and eyes burning with hunger. Sahr'el stood firm. Stay behind me.
No.
She glared. I am warrior-born. You art small. I'm not small. You are smaller than me.
No.
I'm not. The first harpy dove. Sahr'el met it with a roar, slashing upward. The creature shrieked as her blade cut through its wing. Another swooped from behind. She spun, blocking with her forearm, teeth bared. But there were too many. One harpy slammed into her side, knocking her to the ground. Another pinned her arm. A third raked its talons across her shoulder. She cried out, struggling, blood splattering the stone. Vareth froze. Something inside him cracked. The world dimmed. The air thickened. His heartbeat slowed until it was a single, heavy drum. He didn't think. He changed. His body expanded, skin darkening to deep violet. Horns lengthened. His eyes became pits of gravity. The air bent around him as he rose into the form he feared most, the Void Behemoth. The harpies, thought savage creatures with no minds, would have certainly stunned experts as they stopped attacking, shrieked, and stared. He moved. One swipe of his hand crushed a harpy into the cliff. Another blow sent two more spiraling into the ravine. He grabbed the one pinning Sahr'el and squeezed until it burst into dust. Sahr'el stared up at him, trembling, not with fear, but awe. You, she whispered. You are beautiful. He roared, the sound shaking the mountains. Then everything went black. When Vareth opened his eyes, he was in his uncle's arms. Valor knelt beside him, face pale with fear and relief. Little behemoth, breathe. You're safe. Sahr'el stood a few feet away, clutching her wounded arm, eyes wide. Weeks later, when the sun dipped behind the peaks, Vareth brought Sahr'el to the hermitage. Valor cooked a simple meal, root stew, mountain herbs, and warm stone bread. Sahr'el ate like she hadn't seen food in days. This is good, she declared. Better than cave palace food. Valor raised an eyebrow. High praise. She nodded solemnly. Your cooking has honor. Vareth whispered. She talks like that all the time. I heard that, she snapped. He grinned. Valor watched them. Two lonely children from broken worlds, laughing in a place that had forgotten laughter. For a moment, the mountains felt less cold, and the future, though still shadowed, felt a little less alone. Prologue Part 2. The Fall of the Duke. The mountains felt wrong. Vareth sensed it before the wind shifted, before the shadows lengthened, before the first tremor of void pressure crawled up his spine. He stopped mid-stride on the cliff path, staring into the distance as if something enormous had just opened its eyes beneath the world and began looking around. Sahr'el noticed instantly. Blood Ogres always did. Her crimson gaze sharpened. "Your aura, it shakes." "It's not me," Vareth whispered. "Something's pulling at the void." "Then we run," she said, already moving. They sprinted along the ridge, boots skiing on loose stone, breath sharp in the cold air. The closer they got to the hermitage, the heavier the air became, thick, electric, humming with a pressure that made the rocks vibrate. When they reached the final rise far to the east of the hermitage, Vareth's heart stopped. The clearing below was a storm of violet light. Duke Valar stood alone at its center, void energy swirling around him in spirals of starlight. Across from him, emerging from the shadows like nightmares given shape, came the gloom wraiths, dozens, then hundreds, their hollow eyes burning with pale fire. And above them, perched on a jagged ridge like a vulture, stood Bishop Corveth. "Uncle," Vareth breathed, transfixed by the powerful void Kijin Elder. Valar didn't look back. He couldn't. The wraiths surged forward, and he met them with a burst of void force that cracked the ground beneath his feet. The shockwave sent bodies flying, but more crawled from the darkness, drawn by the bishop's call. Corveth's voice drifted down, smooth and cold. "You should have died with the rest of our kind, Valar. But I suppose now that I've finally found you, we can end this." Valar raised a hand, void light coiling around his fingers. "The only thing that will end here is you." "Oh, I know I can't end this alone, Void Sage," the bishop said. "But we will." The earth split. A figure rose from the ground, tall, regal, familiar. Skin pale as moonlight, eyes empty, void energy leaking from every joint. The zombified Void King. Valar's breath caught. "Brother." The corpse tilted its head, as if recognizing him. Then it lunged. The impact shook the clearing. Valar blocked the blow, void light flaring around him, but the king's corpse struck again, relentless, powerful, driven by the bishop's will. Sahr'el grabbed Vareth's arm. "We go down. Now." They slid down the slope in a spray of gravel, hitting the ground running. Vareth's heart hammered. The void inside him pulsed, begging to be released. "Stay behind me," Sahr'el said.
"No," but it snapped.
"Not this time." They charged into the fray. Wraiths lunged from every direction, claws scraping against stone. Sahr'el moved like a crimson storm, blade flashing, blood magic flaring around her in arcs of red light. Every strike sent a wraith tumbling, dissolving into ash. Vareth fought differently, quiet, precise, void energy bending around him. He flickered in and out of sight, slipping past claws and jaws, striking with bursts of gravity that shattered stone. But the bishop had planned for this. A howl tore through the clearing. The earth split again, and marrow howlers crawled out. Skeletal beasts formed from the bones of dead creatures, their bodies glowing with cursed light. Their claws scraped the ground, leaving trails of sparks. Sahr'el's eyes widened. "Those are bad," Vareth finished. The first howler lunged. Sahr'el met it with a roar, slashing through its ribcage. The creature exploded into shards of bone that rained across the clearing like shrapnel. Another howler fired a volley of bone spikes. Valar deflected most, but one struck him in the side, deep, glowing with curse energy. He staggered. "Ugh!" Vareth cried. Valar forced himself upright, void light flickering around him. "I will not be outdone. I will not be the last." In a fit of rage, the Void Sage ripped a concentrated burst of purple light through the hermitage, rending thousands of gloom march undead into ash. He turned to the bishop, and they flit from sight, crashing into each other now through time and space, sending ripples of crushed air and burning trails of purple flame along the sky and grounds of the mountain hermitage. The zombified corpse of the king roared in agitation and flit from sight as well, creating a cascading effect along the air and sky as the three now invisibly fought like shadows along the darkened violet mountainside. The bishop laughed. "Oh, you're fast, Void Sage, but not faster than both of us." Valor lunged at the bishop, void energy crackling around his fists. The bishop countered with a wave of corrupted void light that sent Valor slamming into a boulder and skidding into the ground. The king's corpse moved in, striking with an broken armored knee and reaching into the back of the duke's neck to absorb his void energy. Valor blocked, but his shield flickered. He clapped desperately, and a pulse of void ripped the bishop and the king away. Then the bishop raised his hand. A disruptive wave of void energy cut along his mind, his back, distracting the duke for just a moment. The zombified king struck Valor with a flipping blow that cracked the earth, slashing a hard kick along the back of the duke's head. Valor fell to one knee. The bishop smiled and raised a spear of bone from a nearby marrow howler, twisting it into existence with his corrupted void energy. Long, jagged, glowing with curse fire. Valor looked up, dazed. "Vareth," he whispered. The spear struck. The world went silent. Vareth froze as Sahr'el gasped, nearly 4 ridges away, fighting off hundreds more of the gloom march on their own. Valor collapsed, his nephew, nearly clutched his chest, feeling the pain, the isolation of the moment through the void. Vareth's vision blurred. The void inside him roared, clawing at his ribs, begging to be released. The wraith surged, sensing the shift in energy instinctively. Sahr'el grabbed Vareth, dread filling her voice as her blood sight registered the change in Vareth. "We fly." They leapt into the air, Sahr'el's blood wings unfurling in a burst of crimson light. Vareth cushed off with a burst of gravity, rising beside her. But the howlers fired. Bone shards sliced through the sky, exploding around them. A sonic blast from a leaping howler's claws struck them mid-flight, though the fetid claws missed them by a hair. They fell, tumbling, spinning, the world a blur of sky and stone. Sahr'el reached for him. He reached back. Their hands could not grasp. Their arms became tangled as more sonic bursts pushed and crushed them aside on the way down. Vareth took a direct shot to the side of his neck, causing him to cough blood. Another show winged Sahr'el in the wing, rolling her into him. Their faces collided. Their lips brushed. A smear of blood passed between them. His blood, her mouth. Her eyes widened. Her pupils dilated. Her breath caught. Blood magic flared inside her like a struck drum. She tasted him, recognized him, accepted him, claimed him. In a single heartbeat, her aura wrapped around him like a vow. Then they hit the ground. Hard. Wraiths closed in from the other side of the ridge. The howlers were rushing up from the mountainside, trying to cut them off. Sahr'el staggered to her feet, blade trembling. Vareth. He rose slowly, blood dripping from his mouth, neck burning with seared flesh. Vareth had had enough. He would end this the only way he knew how. "Hold on," he whispered. The pain of speaking made him more willing not to explain what he was about to do. He grabbed her hand. The moment his hand touched hers, her face lit up with a thrill unlike anything she had ever felt. The sight of him, the smell of him, the blood at his mouth intoxicated her to the point of forgetting the battle at hand. She glanced down at their joined hands and looked him in the eye, almost crying, and teleported. The world folded. She reappeared at their cliffside meeting spot. Sahr'el collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her fingertips instinctively swept the blood at her lips. The taste of it made her tusks tingle, her knees and ankles weaken further. She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes as the crushing grim silence peeled her present into reality. He had sent her to safety and left her. Not without. Back in the clearing, Vareth stood alone. The bishop turned, surprised. "You? I thought you were dead already, or that you were killed by the Gloom March. No matter, you and I are the last of the Void Ogres. Or should I say, very soon, I will be the last of the Void Ogres." Vareth didn't answer.
He didn't speak.
He didn't breathe. He simply changed. His body expanded, void light pouring from every pore. Horns lengthened, Muscles thickened. The air bent around him, gravity warping, stone cracking beneath his feet. The Azura Void Berserker rose. The bishop's smile faltered. Vareth roared, issuing a wave of energy from his body that cascaded in the direction of the bishop, toward the mountains. The blast that followed tore the mountains apart, ripped through the sky far above it, and shot into outer space from the ground with a shining violet flare of void light that lit the entire side of the world for a moment. Void energy erupted from him in a wave that flattened wraiths, shattered howlers, and ripped a crater into the earth, so vast it would one day be called the Rift of Two Kingdoms, the border between blood and ash. When the light faded, the bishop was gone. The wraiths were gone. The howlers were gone. And Duke Valor was gone. Sahr'el awoke in her mother's arms, surrounded by guards. Her tutor hovered nearby, eyes calculating. "What happened?" the Blood Queen demanded. Sahr'el swallowed. I was out. I shouldn't have been. I was coming over the mountains, near the ridges bordering the Ash Kingdoms. I like to see the caravans that ride through there sometimes. A huge blast erupted from the plains nearby. I have no idea what happened, but there were gloom march everywhere. I fell out of the sky trying to get away. The tutor narrowed her eyes. Truly, Sahr'el met her gaze. Truly, what happened? Is the kingdom under attack? The bishop's voice drifted faintly through the void. I did not see her. She is telling the truth. The tutor relaxed. The queen held her daughter close. Sahr'el closed her eyes and whispered, "Vareth." She said nothing more. Chapter 1: The Setup. Morning sunlight spilled through the high windows of House Thornycrest, catching dust motes in golden beams and warming the polished stone floors. Prince Rajish Thornycrest sat at the long dining table, hunched over a plate of spiced boar bacon and cheesy bread, trying to enjoy the 1 hour of peace he was allotted each day. He had just taken a bite when the front door slammed open. "Good morning, my future husband." Rajish closed his eyes. "Spirits preserve me." Princess Lorena Ashcrest, the youngest of the Ash matriarch's daughters, bounded into the dining hall wearing, of course, one of his shirts. It hung off her shoulder, far too large, and she looked entirely pleased with herself. She marched straight to him, leaned down, and kissed the top of his head. Rajish didn't look up. "Lorena, why are you in my house?" "Because I live here," she said cheerfully. "You do not." "I will." "You will not." She ignored him and plopped into the chair beside him, swinging her legs. "I reorganized your bedroom again." Rajish froze. "You what?" "Your socks were sad."
They needed me.
"My socks do not have emotions." "They do now."
He groaned.
"Lorena, you cannot keep breaking into my mansion." "I didn't break in," she said. "I bypassed your wards." "That is worse." She shrugged. "You should make better wards." Before he could respond, the door slammed again. This time, the floor shook. Princess Kilira Ashcrest, the middle sister, strode in wearing a sleeveless training tunic that showed off every sculpted muscle in her arms and shoulders. She carried a massive obsidian greatsword over one shoulder, like it weighed nothing. "Rajish," she said, voice low and smoky. "I am here to spar."
No.
She stepped closer. "I have trained all morning. I am warm. I am ready."
No.
"I will not break your ribs this time. That is not comforting." Kilira leaned down, her face inches from his. "Fight me."
No.
She straightened, offended. "You fear me." "I fear for my life." "That is the same thing." "It is not." Lorena stuck her tongue out at her sister. "He doesn't want to spar with you. He wants to eat breakfast with his wife." "You are not his wife," Kilira snapped. "I will be." "You will not. You're just jealous because he likes my muffins." "You do not bake muffins." "I bake feelings." "That is not a thing." "It is now." Rajish put his head in his hands. "Please. I beg you. Let me eat." The door opened a third time, quietly, gracefully. Princess Serena Ashcrest, the eldest, entered with a basket of warm sweetberry muffins and a serene smile that did not reach her eyes. Good morning, Prince Rajesh, she said sweetly. I brought nourishment.
Kilira groaned.
Not the muffins again. Sahr'el glided forward. A man must be fed properly. Unlike some people, I understand the importance of nutrition. Kilira flexed. He needs strength, not sugar. Lorana raised her hand. I need sugar. No one asked you, Sahr'el said. Rajesh stood abruptly. I am leaving. Sahr'el blocked him with the basket. Eat one.
No. Eat. No.
Kilira stepped forward. Fight me.
No.
Lorana grabbed his arm. Kiss me.
No.
He yanked his arm free, dodged Sahr'el's basket, ducked under Kilira's sword, and sprinted toward the back hallway. Rajesh! All three sisters shouted in unison. He didn't stop. He dove into a hidden passage behind a tapestry, slammed the stone panel shut, and leaned against it, panting. Every morning, he muttered. Every single morning. A voice drifted from the shadows. You are very popular. Rajesh froze. He knew that voice. He turned slowly. A tall figure stepped into the dim light, purple-skinned, short-horned, eyes glowing faintly with void light. Older now, broader, stronger, but unmistakable. Vareth, Rajesh whispered. Vareth smiled softly. Hello, old friend. Rajesh didn't think. He lunged forward and wrapped his arms around him. Vareth stiffened for a moment, then returned the embrace, pulling him close with surprising gentleness. I thought you were dead, Rajesh said into his shoulder. I thought you forgot me, Vareth murmured. Never. They held each other for a long moment, the weight of years settling between them like dust. When they finally pulled apart, Rajesh wiped his eyes. You look different. You look tired, Vareth said. I am tired. You smell like muffins. That is not my fault. Vareth tilted his head. Who were those three? Nightmares. They seemed affectionate. They are nightmares. Vareth nodded. Understood. Rajesh took a deep breath. Come on. We need to talk. They slipped through the hidden passage into the lower courtyard, then into the quiet streets of Emberhold's artisan district. Rajesh led Vareth into a small tavern called the Embered Cup, where the morning crowd was thin and the shadows were forgiving. They sat in a corner booth. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vareth said, The Wound killed my kingdom. Rajesh's breath caught. I know. They killed my father, my uncle, my people. I know. They are planning something at the ceremony. Rajesh nodded slowly. I think so too. Vareth leaned forward. What do you know? Rajesh hesitated, then lowered his voice. There are 6 wound agents. One of them is the royal chef of my tribe. He's here, in Emberhold, meeting with the Ash Advisor. Vareth's eyes narrowed. The chef. Yes. The one who knows poisons. Yes. And he is meeting with the advisor. Yes. Vareth exhaled. Then the wound is already here. Rajesh nodded. And they're planning something big. Vareth reached across the table and placed his hand over Rajesh's. We will stop them. Rajesh swallowed. Like when we were boys? Vareth smiled. Exactly like that. They returned to House Thornicrest through the back entrance, avoiding the sisters entirely. Rajesh led Vareth down into the research lab, a sprawling chamber of crystal conduits, humming magitech, and stacks of parchment. Impressive, Vareth murmured. It's a mess, Rajesh said. It is impressive. Rajesh activated the central console. Let's track the professor and the advisor. The runes flared, projecting a map of Emberhold. 2 glowing lines traced the movements of Professor Haldria Vexmore and Advisor Jorvan Slatehide. Vareth frowned. They are meeting in restricted areas. Yes. And taking materials from your lab. Yes. And you allowed this? Rajesh sighed. I was being polite. Vareth stared at him. Why? Because the Ash Matriarch scares me. That is fair. A knock echoed from upstairs. Rajesh groaned. That will be trouble. It was. When he opened the door, Sahr'el stood there with her basket of muffins, glaring at him. Prince Rajesh, she said sweetly. We need to talk about your diet. Behind her, Haldrea appeared, expression cold. We need to talk about Omni-Steel. Rajesh forced a smile. Wonderful. Vareth turned invisible. Sarana narrowed her eyes. Who are you hiding? No one. Liar. Rajesh shoved a muffin into her hands.
Here.
Go. She blinked.
Oh.
Thank you.
She left.
Haldrea stepped inside. I require Omni-Steel for the ceremony. Rajesh nodded. Lead technician Branner will assist you. Take what you need. Log everything. Haldrea swept away. Vareth reappeared beside him. She is dangerous. That was the calm one. Vareth blinked. There are worse. Yes. I am sorry. You should be. The console chimed. A list of materials taken by Haldrea appeared. Vareth leaned in. Rajesh. Yes. These components. Yes. They form a metal bomb. Rajesh froze. A what? A Marrow-Heller-style shrapnel device, designed to mimic monster attacks, and it will be traced back to your lab. Rajesh stared at the list, horror creeping across his face. She's framing me. Yes. And the advisor is helping her. Yes. And the ceremony is in 2 days. Yes. Rajesh inhaled sharply. We need to move. Vareth nodded. We will. Rajesh grabbed his coat. We're breaking into her study tonight. Vareth smiled. Just like old times. Rajesh groaned. Except now the stakes are higher. And the sisters are scarier. Rajesh shuddered. Don't remind me. They stepped into the night. And the hunt for the wound began. Chapter 1. The Setup. Morning sunlight spilled through the high windows of House Thornycrest, catching dust motes in golden beams and warming the polished stone floors. Prince Rajesh Thornycrest sat at the long dining table, hunched over a plate of spiced boar bacon and cheesy bread, trying to enjoy the 1 hour of peace he was allotted each day. He had just taken a bite when the front door slammed open. Good morning, my future husband. Rajesh closed his eyes. Spirits preserve me. Princess Lorena Ashcrest, the youngest of the Ash matriarch's daughters, bounded into the dining hall wearing, of course, one of his shirts. It hung off her shoulder, far too large, and she looked entirely pleased with herself. She marched straight to him, leaned down, and kissed the top of his head. Rajesh didn't look up. Lorena, why are you in my house? Because I live here, she said cheerfully. You do not. I will. You will not. She ignored him and plopped into the chair beside him, swinging her legs. I reorganized your bedroom again. Rajesh froze. You what? Your socks were sad. They needed me. My socks do not have emotions. They do now. He groaned. Lorena, you cannot keep breaking into my mansion. I didn't break in, she said. I bypassed your wards. That is worse. She shrugged. You should make better wards. Before he could respond, the door slammed again. This time, the floor shook. Princess Kilira Ashcrest, the middle sister, strode in wearing a sleeveless training tunic that showed off every sculpted muscle in her arms and shoulders. She carried a massive obsidian greatsword over one shoulder, like it weighed nothing. Rajesh, she said, voice low and smoky. I am here to spar. No. She stepped closer. I have trained all morning. I am warm. I am ready. No. You have your magus to heal you. That is not comforting. I will not break your ribs this time. That is not motivational. Kilira leaned down, her face inches from his. Fight me. That is not seductive. She straightened, offended. You fear me. I fear not finishing breakfast. I am the only ogress for you to fear. You are not. Lorena stuck her tongue out at her sister. He doesn't want to spar with you. He wants to eat breakfast with his wife. You are not his wife, Kilira snapped. I will be. You will not. You're just jealous because he likes those stupid muffins. You do not bake muffins. I bake feelings. That is not a thing. It is for my husband. Rajesh put his head in his hands. Please. It is like a curse. These women keep showing up in my house. The door opened a third time, quietly, gracefully. Princess Serena Ashcrest, the eldest, entered with a basket of warm sweetberry muffins and a serene smile that did not reach her eyes. "Good morning, Prince Rajesh," she said sweetly. "I brought nourishment." Kilira groaned. "Not the muffins again." Serena glided forward. "A man must be fed properly. Unlike some people, I understand the importance of nutrition."
Kilira flexed.
"He needs strength, not sugar." Lorena raised her hand. "I need sugar." "No one asked you," Serena said. Rajesh stood abruptly. "I am leaving." Serena blocked him with the basket. "Eat one."
"No. Eat." "No."
Kilira stepped forward. "Fight me."
"No."
Lorena grabbed his arm. "Kiss me."
"No."
He yanked his arm free, dodged Serena's basket, ducked under Kilira's arm, and sprinted toward the back hallway. "Rajesh!" All three sisters shouted in unison.
He didn't stop.
He dove into a hidden passage behind a tapestry, slammed the stone panel shut, and leaned against it, panting. "Every morning," he muttered. "Every single morning." A voice drifted from the shadows. "You are very popular." Rajesh froze. He knew that voice. He turned slowly. A tall figure stepped into the dim light, purple-skinned, short-horned, eyes glowing faintly with void light. Older now, broader, stronger, but unmistakable. "Vareth," Rajesh whispered. Vareth smiled softly. "Hello, old boy." Rajesh didn't think. He lunged forward and wrapped his arms around him. Vareth stiffened for a moment, then returned the embrace, pulling him close with surprising gentleness. "I thought you were dead," Rajesh said into his shoulder. "I thought you forgot me," Vareth murmured. "Never." They held each other for a long moment, the weight of years settling between them like dust. When they finally pulled apart, Rajesh wiped his eyes. "You look different." "You look tired," Vareth said. "I am tired." "You smell like muffins." "That is not my fault." Vareth tilted his head. "Who were those three?" "Nightmares." "They seemed affectionate." "They are nightmares." Vareth nodded. "Understood." Rajesh took a deep breath. "Come on. We need to talk." They slipped through the hidden passage into the lower courtyard, then into the quiet streets of Emberhold's artisan district. Rajesh led Vareth into a small tavern called the Embered Cup, where the morning crowd was thin and the shadows were forgiving. They sat in a corner booth. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vareth said, "The Wound killed my kingdom." Rajesh's breath caught. "I know. They killed my father, my uncle, my people. I know. They are planning something at the ceremony." Rajesh nodded slowly. "I think so too." Vareth leaned forward. "What do you know?" Rajesh hesitated, then lowered his voice. "There are 6 wound agents. One of them is the royal chef of my tribe. He's here, in Emberhold, meeting with the Ash tribe advisor and the professor of the Magic Academy." Varetha's eyes narrowed. "The chef." "Yes." "An ogre who would know poisons." "Yes." "And he is meeting with the advisor, an ogre with the ear of a monarch." "Yes." Vareth exhaled. "Then we don't have much time. Do you know where any of them stay?" Rajesh nodded. "Only the advisor, but I've got nothing. The chef, on the other hand, I've got a dozen unproven poison and toxin deaths over decades. My father has been eyeing the chef since I was a boy, but could never prove anything. Always got someone to lie for him somehow." Vareth reached across the table and placed his hand over Rajesh's shoulder. "We will stop them. We will finish our father's work." Rajesh nodded, an idea coming to mind. "Have you mastered your void techniques?" Vareth smiled. "Even my transformation." They returned to House Thornacrest through the back entrance, avoiding the sisters entirely. Rajesh led Vareth down into the research lab, a sprawling chamber of crystal conduits, humming magitech, and stacks of parchment. "Impressive," Vareth murmured. "It's a mess," Rajesh said. "Still impressive." Rajesh activated the central console. "Let's track the professor." The runes flared, projecting a map of Emberhold. Two glowing lines traced the movements of Professor Haldrea Vexmore and Advisor Jorvan Slatehide. Two more lines stretched far out into the horizon away from Emberhold. Vareth frowned. Looks like your materials are being shipped to restricted areas.
Yes.
That's why I've been tracking the professor and the advisor as well. In fact, Haldrea came to me yesterday requesting some omnium steel and magicite from the research lab, said it was for the ceremony. And you put a trace on the materials from your lab. Yes. And how did the professor not notice this? Rajesh sighed. There were two tracers. I knew once she discovered the lab's signature on one of them, she wouldn't notice tracer in the power cores of the containers housing them. Vareth stared at him. Why exactly did they need magicite and omnium steel?
That I don't know.
Could be hundreds of things. Both are fairly common, considering what we do with just magicite alone, but omnium steel could be used for a magical weapon system. That is fair, but it looks like the Professor Haldrea is here at your lab. Is that normal? A knock echoed from upstairs. Rajesh groaned. And that will be trouble. I don't want you seen yet.
It was.
Vareth turned invisible on the spot as the prince pressed a thumb along the rune screen, changing it to his latest notes on metal refinery and the scratched-out notes of his last two failures scratched out in black and red. Rajesh turned to open the door, just as he glanced again at where Vareth disappeared. When he opened the door, Sahr'el stood there with her basket of muffins, glaring at him. Prince Rajesh, she said sweetly, we need to talk about your diet. Behind her, Haldrea appeared, expression cold. We need to talk about more omnium steel. There appears to be no other dealers left who have any in the amounts we're looking for. I'd like to trouble you for a second shipment. Rajesh forced a smile. Wonderful. Sahr'el narrowed her eyes. Who are you hiding? You really think me capable of hiding someone? Yes, answered Sahr'el through suspicious eyes. Rajesh snatched a muffin from the bunch.
There.
Happy. She blinked.
Oh.
Thank you. Now, was that so hard? Next time, try not to hide your hunger. You work too much. She left, completely content, almost skipping back along the corridor. Haldrea stepped inside. I require another shipment for the ceremony. Rajesh nodded. Lead technician Branner will assist you. Take what you need. Log everything. Haldrea swept away with a nod. Vareth reappeared beside him. She is one of them. I can feel it. I know. What the hells is she doing with so much omnium? Vareth paced a few steps before speaking. Can you access the data logs for what she's going to take? I'm doing it right now. Great ogres think alike. The console chimed. A list of materials ordered by Haldrea appeared. Vareth leaned in. Rajesh. Yeah, these components. Yes, they form a metal bomb. Rajesh froze. A what? A Marrow-Heller-style shrapnel device, designed to mimic monster attacks.
And it will be traced back to your lab.
Rajesh stared at the list, horror creeping across his face. She's framing me. Yes. And the advisor is helping her. Yes. And the ceremony is in 2 days. Yes. Rajesh inhaled sharply. We need to move. Vareth nodded. We will. Rajesh grabbed his coat. We're breaking into her study tonight. Vareth smiled. Just like old times. Rajesh groaned. Except now the stakes are higher. And the sisters are scarier. Rajesh shuddered. Don't remind me. They stepped into the night, and the hunt for the wound began. Chapter 2. The Murder. Professor Haldrea Vexmore's study was locked, warded, and protected by 3 layers of Ashtribe security magic. Rajesh bypassed all of them with the casual expertise of someone who had been breaking into this office every day for weeks. Vareth watched him work. You are very good at this. I am the head of magical research, you know, Rajesh muttered.
You should have told me that.
Rajesh, that's fantastic.
Sorta.
My father only gave me the appointment to get me closer to the Ashkra sisters. Let me guess, to marry you off? The final ward clicked open. Rajesh pushed the door inward. Precisely, he answered, stepping slowly within. Vareth followed, slowly shutting the door behind them, but not locking it. Haldria's study was immaculate, too immaculate. Every book aligned, every scroll sealed, every quill sharpened to a perfect point. It was the kind of room that made Rajesh feel messy just by breathing in it. Vareth scanned the shelves. She hides things well. Not well enough. When a place is just too clean, sometimes it implies it's not really the place they spend all their time. But this time we may get lucky checking the one place I'm sure gets seen every visit, Rajesh said, heading straight for the desk. They found the hidden compartment in seconds. Inside, a map of Emberhold, a list of materials, a set of coordinates, and a stamped authorization seal that Haldria absolutely did not have the right to possess. Vareth tapped the coordinates. This is outside the city. Gloomy Gulch, Rajesh said. Old mining tunnels. Abandoned. Or not abandoned. Rajesh nodded grimly. Or that. Love that. Anyway, I think it's time to go. Let's copy everything. And the wall exploded. A massive metal fist punched through the stone, sending shards flying. Rajesh and Vareth dove aside as a tank golem, a hulking construct of steel plates, glowing runes, and a single angry red eye, stomped into the room. Rajesh stared. Why does she have a tank golem? Those are forbidden magic technology. Vareth blinked. Isn't this a school? The golem whirred, scanned the room, and locked onto them. Rajesh groaned. Of course. The golem charged. They dodged left. The golem plowed through Haldria's desk, splintering it into dust. Rajesh grabbed Varetha's arm. Window. That is a terrible idea. It's the only idea. The golem swung again. They leapt. The window shattered as they crashed through it, tumbling into open air. Rajesh screamed. Vareth did not. They fell 3 stories. Vareth caught Rajesh with his power in midair, twisted, and landed in a crouch that cracked the cobblestones. Rajesh wheezed, touching down in a fit of shock, not used to free fall. I thought you were going to make us fly. Why didn't you warn me?
I did, Vareth said.
No, you didn't. I said it was a terrible idea. That's not a warning. The golem burst through the wall above them. Rajesh grabbed Varetha's wrist. Fly. Vareth lifted them both with a burst of void gravity, shooting into the sky as the golem crashed into the street below, roaring in metallic frustration. Rajesh looked down. We are never telling the sisters about this. They would not believe us. They would challenge the golem to a duel. That may be true. The coordinates led them to Gloomy Gulch, a jagged canyon of abandoned mining tunnels and rusted machinery. The air smelled of iron and old magic. They landed at the mouth of a cave reinforced with new steel plating. Rajesh frowned. This is definitely not abandoned. Inside, they found an unsanctioned research facility. Rows of metal crates, vats of glowing liquid, and half-assembled constructs. Runes pulsed along the walls, powering machines that hummed with dangerous energy. Vareth knelt beside a crate. These are the same materials Haldria took from your lab. Rajesh opened another crate. And these are Meyer tribe components. Poison vials.
Corruption catalyst.
They are framing you, Vareth said quietly. And my tribe, Rajesh whispered. They searched deeper, finding a sealed chamber filled with metal shards shaped like bone fragments. Varetha's expression darkened. Shrapnel bombs. Designed to mimic marrow howler attacks. Rajesh swallowed. She's going to use them at the ceremony. Vareth stood. We must return.
Now.
People need to be warned. They flew back to Emberhold under the rising sun, the city glowing gold beneath them. Rajesh felt a knot in his stomach. Something was wrong. He didn't know how he knew, he just did. When they landed in the courtyard of House Thornacrest, guards were already gathered. Servants whispered. The air was heavy. Rajesh pushed through the crowd and froze. Lorana Ashcrest lay on the ground, eyes closed, body still.
No wounds.
No blood. Just a single cursed mire blade beside her, its edge blackened with dark magic. Rajesh's heart stopped. No, he whispered.
No, no, no.
Vareth stepped forward, but something in the air shifted. Something cold, sharp, dangerous. He vanished. just blinked out of sight.
Rajesh spun.
Vareth? Vareth? No answer. The guards closed in, and the nightmare began. The Ash Palace throne room was a storm of grief and fury. Matriarch Sahr'el Ashcrest stood over her daughter's body, trembling with rage. Her crimson eyes burned like coals. Her voice shook the pillars. Who did this? Beside her, Matriarch Valoria Bloodcrest placed a hand on her shoulder. Sahr'el, breathe. Sahr'el's voice cracked. She was my baby. Valoria bowed her head. And she was beloved. Princess Kilira Ashcrest knelt beside her sister, jaw clenched, fists shaking. She looked up at Rajesh with eyes full of pain. I know you did not do this, she said quietly, but they will say you did. Sahr'el stood behind her, silent, tears streaming down her face. Rajesh felt hollow. I should have been here, he whispered. We know, Kilira said, but the guards didn't. The advisors didn't. The court didn't. And the cursed mire blade beside Lorana's body was damning. The Ash Matriarch turned to him slowly. Prince Rajesh Thornacrest, until we know the truth, you are under investigation. Rajesh bowed his head. I understand. Kilira stepped forward. Mother. Enough, Sahr'el said, voice breaking. Take him. Guards approached. Then the doors slammed open. The Mire King, Lord Thornacrest, strode in with his queen at his side. His presence filled the room like a storm front. Touch my son, he said softly, and I will drown this palace in mire. The Ash Guards froze. Sahr'el glared. Your blade killed my daughter. My blade killed no one. The Mire King snapped. Someone wants war. Valoria stepped between them. Enough. This will lead nowhere. Rajesh looked up sharply. Then what do we do? His father nodded, turning to his son with a slow tilt of his head and leading him several steps away from the others toward his royal guard. I know everything, including where you really were tonight. Rajesh kept his head down, his face darkened. Then you know I have to go. The king's jaw tightened. What did you find? I have a lead. But I can't follow it if I'm locked in a cell. The king stared at him for a long moment. A murky, dark green luminescence erupted from him. Then the Mire King stepped close, placing a firm hand on Rajesh's shoulder. He could see the others watching them now, curious, but out of earshot. You have until nightfall tomorrow, he said quietly. After that, I cannot protect you. Rajesh nodded. I understand. His father squeezed his shoulder once, erupting a flush of dark green energy into his son, sending his body into a convulsing fit of jolting pain that issued a swell of saliva from his mouth and made him sag as his father held him up. With his immense Mire Kidgen ogre strength, he tossed his unconscious son into the arms of a royal guard behind him, shocking the other royal ogres with his brutal handling of his own spawn. My son has lied to me about where he was tonight. I will find the truth after I have interrogated properly myself. You ladies have my deepest condolences, but just now I have a war to prevent and a brash young man to punish, he said. The king nodded to them all and turned toward the door. Kilira stepped into his path. Rajesh. He met her eyes. He saw her soul in them, swelling but not relenting to tears. Not yet. Bring him back to me unspoiled. He nodded. That depends on wherever the hells he was earlier tonight. I assure you he will be returned to the throne room by nightfall tomorrow, said the Mire King, stepping around her. As he passed his guards, they turned, dragging the prince along with them, a darker turn for him, strangely as the princesses and the queens stared at what they could tell would be a brutal reckoning. Chapter 3. The Infiltration. Night fell over Emberhold like a curtain of smoke. The city's lanterns flickered in the wind, casting long shadows across the stone streets as Prince Rajesh Thornacrest moved swiftly through the alleys, cloak pulled tight around him. Behind him walked his two most trusted allies. Lead technician Branner Flintweld, a stocky Ashbourne engineer with soot-blackened hands and a permanent scowl. Led Magus Thalia Moonweave, a tall Mireborn sorceress with silver tattoos glowing faintly along her arms. And waiting in the shadows ahead, silent, still, almost blending into the darkness, stood Vareth, Ragesh exhaled. Everyone ready? Branner cracked his knuckles, ready to break things. Thalia rolled her eyes. We are not breaking things. We are infiltrating. Branner shrugged. Same thing. Vareth stepped forward. The transport arrives in 30 seconds. Ragesh nodded. Positions. They moved like a practiced unit, Ragesh and Vareth taking the lead, Branner and Thalia flanking. The automated transport, a large metal carriage powered by ash-tribe runes, rolled down the street, its wheels humming softly. Ragesh whispered, "On my mark." The four of them crouched behind a stone archway, breaths held. The transport slowed as it approached the hidden storage facility entrance. Ragesh raised his hand. Mark. They moved. Vareth flickered forward, becoming a blur of violet light. Ragesh leapt onto the back of the transport, jumping at the control panel near the rear hatch. Branner leapt up behind him. Thalia whispered a spell, bending the shadows around them all as Ragesh worked silently. The transport's rear hatch clicked open. They slipped inside just as the automated transport slipped by a scanning ward. The interior was dim, filled with crates and humming machinery. The transport lurched forward again, carrying them toward the underground facility. For a moment, they stood in silence, four figures in the dark, preparing for war. Then they sat in a square, getting used to the low rumble of the magical machinery within, the constant grinding of the wheels along the restricted road. Branner slowly began loading humming crystals into his magical scattershot, while Thalia placed more runed bracelets and rings around her arms and fingers. They sat without a word for a long time, feeling the transport as it strolled along, oblivious to the stowaways. Vareth whispered, "How much time we got?" Ragesh nodded. "Minutes. We're pulling up now." Branner grinned. "And then we break things." Thalia sighed. "Yes, Branna. Then we break things." The transport slowed.
Stopped.
The hatch opened automatically. Several voices complaining about the transport being flagged as overweight after riding over the scale upon entry to the facility. For a moment, the four only looked up at two guards stunned into silence. Then the Myr Magus pulled up her arm and slashed a debilitating ray of lightning magic down at them, silencing their voices and their ogre souls. The hidden storage facility was a maze of metal corridors and glowing runes. Guards patrolled in pairs, unaware of the danger approaching. Vareth struck first. He appeared behind the nearest guard, tapped him on the neck, and the man collapsed silently. Ragesh followed, sweeping another guard's legs and stunning him with a burst of mire fire. Branna planted explosive charges along the support beams. Thalia disabled the alarm runes with elegant flicks of her fingers along unseen wires in the walls and ceiling as they worked their way toward the center of the facility. They moved deeper. The air grew colder. The walls shifted from metal to stone. And then they heard voices. Ragesh raised a hand, signaling silence. They crept toward a half-open doorway where flickering light spilled into the hall. Inside, three figures stood around a projection table. Professor Haldrea Vexmore, her silver braid gleaming. Chef Morveth Meyertongue, the Myr trader. The Watcher, hooded and trembling with fanatic devotion. The projection showed a map of the continent and red circles around every ogre kingdom. Haldrea's voice was cold. Phase 1 is complete. We have procured both the assets from the bombardment from only the Myr Prince. Morveth nodded. And when the tribes tear each other apart blaming each other for the attacks, the wound will send the gloom march. The Watcher leaned forward. And Phase 2 is done. The Ashcrest Princess has been silenced. Haldrea smiled. The purge of Phase 3 takes place soon. Ragesh stiffened. Varetha's eyes darkened. Haldrea continued. The ogre species is a mistake. A failed experiment of the void. We will cleanse the world of them. All of them, and rebuild a purer order. Morveth added, the bombs are ready. The ceremony will be the spark. The Watcher whispered, and the prince. Haldrea's smile widened.
Dead.
Or blamed. Either outcome serves us. He should be in Ashcrest Cutity right now. Ragesh's breath shook with fury. Varetha's voice was a whisper of thunder. We end this now. They push forward. A massive steel door marked with a sigil of an open wound loomed ahead. Rajesh placed his hand on it. This is it. Vareth stepped beside him.
Together.
They pushed. The door groaned open. Inside was a cavernous bunker filled with wound agents. Dozens of them, working at metal tables, assembling bombs, mixing toxins, carving runes into bone-shaped shrapnel. The moment the door opened, every head turned. Silence. Then chaos. The wound surged forward. Rajesh inhaled and unleashed a wave of emerald mire fire that swept across the room, incinerating the first line of attackers. Vareth leapt into the air, gravity bending around him, and slammed into the ground with enough force to send shockwaves through the bunker. Agents flew like ragdolls. Branner strafed the left side, letting loose his scattershot. Thalia summoned a vortex of shimmering light, trapping several agents in a swirling prison of magic. Haldrea shouted, "Kill them." Morveth hurled a vial of black toxin. Vareth flicked it aside with a gravity pulse, sending it exploding harmlessly against the ceiling. Rajesh ducked under a blade, grabbed the attacker's wrist and twisted, sending him crashing into a table. Vareth caught two agents midair, crushed their weapons with a flick of his fingers, and hurled them into the wall. Haldrea charged Rajesh with a blade of corrupted steel. Rajesh blocked with a burst of fire, sparks flying. "You betrayed your kingdom," he shouted. Haldrea snarled. "My kingdom was weak." Vareth appeared behind her, grabbed her arm, and slammed her into the floor. She didn't rise. Morveth lunged at Rajesh with a poison dagger. Rajesh sidestepped, grabbed the chef by the collar, and blasted him with a point-blank burst of mire fire that sent him crashing into a crate. He didn't rise either. The Watcher tried to flee. Vareth pointed, trying to grab him with void magic, but a wound agent leapt in the way and got slammed to the ground instead. Rajesh sprinted after him, vaulting over debris. The Watcher threw a handful of cursed dust behind him, but Rajesh blasted through it with a burst of fire. Vareth teleported ahead, appearing in front of the Watcher. The Watcher skidded to a stop. Vareth grabbed him by the collar and lifted him off the ground. "You are done," Vareth said softly. The Watcher trembled, pleading through bloody lips. Please." Rajesh arrived beside them. "Shut up." After a single, blood-letting slap, the Watcher sagged in defeat. Behind them, Branner shouted, "Charges set." Thalia added, "We must leave."
Now.
Rajesh nodded. "Everyone out." They sprinted back through the corridors, dragging the Watcher with them. The transport was still there. Vareth grabbed Rajesh's arm. "Hold on." He teleported them all in a burst of violet light into the automated transport, and it took off after being activated by Rajesh. The moment they appeared outside, the Mire Prince stared at the Watcher with pure venom. "The only you're still alive is to clear my name," said Rajesh. He nodded to Branner, who pulled out a device from his belt and turned it. With low rumble, the ground shook. The facility exploded behind them, a pillar of fire and metal erupting into the sky. Branner whistled. "That was beautiful." Thalia smacked his arm. "That was dangerous." Rajesh looked at Vareth. Vareth looked back. "We did it," Rajesh said. "For now," Vareth replied. They dragged the Watcher toward Emberhold. The Wound's plan was exposed, and the war for the ogre species had begun. The Ash Palace throne room was packed, guards, nobles, advisors, and both queens standing at the center. Rajesh and Vareth dragged the Watcher forward. Matriarch Sahr'el Ashcrest glared down at them. "Explain." Rajesh shoved the Watcher to his knees. "Start talking." The Watcher trembled as the Matriarch may not have known who this ogre was, but she knew he had something to hide from the fear roiling off of him. He continued to tremble as the tutor and advisor stared daggers at him. He was not a true member of the Wound, only a believer, a tool that would kill at their command for promise toward the greater good. That promise shattered tonight. A new one more brutal and nightmarish emerged instead as the Ash Matriarch, the Blood Ogre's queen, Sahr'el Ashcrest, bent down and viciously grabbed the side of his face at the cheek and growled, "Speak, vermin, while you still can." He stared into her eyes, and she gave him back a fire that promised pain instead of a repeated command. He broke, almost sobbing as he began mumbling.
I confess.
The wound infiltrated the palace. The advisor, Jorvan Slate-Hyde. He planned everything. The tutor, Melira Bloodcrest, she helped. They framed the prince. And I killed Princess Lorana. Gasps filled the hall. Kilira stepped forward, fists clenched. Where are they? A voice answered from the shadows. Here. Advisor Jorvan Slate-Hyde stepped out, eyes glowing with corrupted magic. Tutor Melira appeared beside him, her smile cold. You should not have returned, Jorvan hissed. Melira raised her hand, summoning a blade of dark energy. We will finish what we began. They lunged. The queens moved faster. Matriarch Sahr'el unleashed a blast of ash fire that struck Jorvan square in the chest, sending him crashing into a pillar. Matriarch Veloria summoned a spear of bloodlight and hurled it through his heart. He fell. Melira screamed and charged at Rajesh. Kilira stepped in front of him. Her fist glowed with molten ash flame. You killed my sister. Melira snarled. She was weak. Kilira struck and struck again, neglecting her great sword and electing to bash the tutor down into the polished palace floor. The impacts shook the hall as the others watched. Melira collapsed, her body bent and broken around her neck and shoulders. Silence. Then Sahr'el spoke. The wound is exposed. Chapter 4. The Reunion. The Blood Ogre spire rose like a crimson fong above the serpent peaks, its obsidian walls glowing faintly with runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. Snow drifted around it in slow spirals, catching the red light and turning the air into a storm of embers. Inside the High Council chamber, the Ash Matriarch Sahr'el Ashcrest stood beside the Blood Matriarch Veloria Bloodcrest, both queens wrapped in heavy ceremonial cloaks. Their guards waited outside. This meeting was private. Sahr'el's voice was low, tired. The Watcher's confession confirms it. The wound has agents in every kingdom. They've been planning this for years. Veloria nodded, her expression grim. The tunnels beneath the Crimson Hollows were compromised. The wound used them to move weapons and monsters across borders without detection. Sahr'el exhaled shakily. We have lost daughters, sons, advisors, and the bishop still hides. Veloria placed a hand on her shoulder. We will find him. Sahr'el's composure cracked. I am losing my family, Veloria. Sahr'el has not left her chambers since Lorana's death. Not even after learning the traitors were slain. She will not eat. She will not speak. Veloria's eyes softened. Grief takes many shapes. And Kilira, Sahr'el rubbed her temples. She has begun lashing out. Violently. She nearly broke a guard's arm for stepping too close. She loved her sister. She loved them both, Sahr'el whispered. And now she is my youngest. And she is furious. Veloria hesitated, then said quietly, You are not the only mother with a daughter in turmoil. Sahr'el looked up. Sahr'el. Veloria sighed. She refuses every suitor, every alliance, every proposal. She says she already belongs to someone. Sahr'el blinked. To whom? A boy she met as a child. Veloria said. A void-touched boy. A noble boy. A boy she blood-bonded with by accident. Sahr'el's eyes widened. She blood-bonded? Yes. And she remembers him? She never forgot him, Veloria said. She speaks of him constantly. She dreams of him. She refuses to consider any other. Sahr'el frowned. But that boy would have died. The Void Kingdom fell. Veloria's expression darkened. She does not believe he died. She has rejected even the curious ones. Sahr'el hesitated. What happened when a suitor came calling? Veloria pinched the bridge of her nose. She threw one off the balcony. The other she requested her attendants and guards to leave. The next moment she tossed him through her entrance chamber wall, breaking his legs. Sahr'el choked. She what? He lived, Veloria added. Barely. It is not often I've had to apologize, but I felt compelled to after I encouraged it. Sahr'el stared. Your daughter is famous in the Blood Kingdom. Vealoria sighed. She is famous in the Ash Kingdom as well. Sahr'el nodded reluctantly.
Yes.
For throwing a noble ogre off a balcony. Vealoria groaned. Before either queen could speak again, the chamber doors opened. Prince Rajish Thornicrest strode in, cloak dusted with snow, expression grim. Sahr'el straightened. Rajish. What news? Rajish bowed. We found a hidden testing facility in the Crimson Hollows. The wound tested the metal bomb there. Hundreds of monsters were slaughtered. Vealoria's eyes narrowed. Where is this facility now? Rajish hesitated. Destroyed. Sahr'el frowned. By whom? Rajish rubbed his face. Kilira and Sahr'el. Both queens froze. Vealoria whispered. My daughter and yours? Rajish nodded. They met at the site. They are competed. Sahr'el groaned. Competed? Rajish nodded again. They destroyed the entire facility. Together. In under 10 minutes. Vealoria covered her face. Hells. Sahr'el muttered. I am going to strangle them both. Rajish sighed. They killed the remaining wound agents. Efficiently, loudly, and with enthusiasm. Vealoria winced. Sahr'el does nothing quietly. Sahr'el muttered. Neither does Kilira. Rajish cleared his throat. There is something else. Both queens looked at him. Rajish stepped aside, and Vareth walked into the chamber. The queens froze. Vealoria's breath caught. It cannot be. Sahr'el whispered. The Void Prince. Vareth bowed respectfully. Matriarchs. Vealoria stepped forward, trembling. You are alive. Yes. Sahr'el stared at him. You are the boy my daughter blood bonded with. Vareth blinked. I what? Rajish muttered. Long story. Vealoria's eyes gleamed. He is perfect for her. Sahr'el scowled. He is perfect for my daughter. Rajish groaned. Please don't start. Vealoria snapped. He is blood-touched. Sahr'el snapped back. He is ash-compatible. Rajish rubbed his temples. Not again. Vealoria lifted her chin. I will summon Sahr'el. Rajish whispered. Brace yourself. Vareth blinked. For what? The doors slammed open. Princess Sahr'el Bloodcrest burst into the chamber like a crimson comet, hair wild, eyes blazing. Where is he? Vareth froze. Sahr'el spotted him. Her breath hitched. Her eyes filled. And she sprinted. She collided with him so hard he staggered back, arms wrapping around his neck, face buried in his shoulder. Vareth, she whispered, voice breaking. You did live. Vareth held her tightly. Sahr'el. She pulled back, cupping his face with trembling hands. I knew you lived. I knew it. I felt you. I dreamed you. She kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't hesitant. It was years of longing, grief, and hope crashing together. Vareth froze for half a heartbeat, then kissed her back. Rajish looked away. Okay, that's happening. Sahr'el muttered. My daughters are disasters. Vealoria whispered proudly. Mine is a hurricane. Sahr'el finally pulled back, breathless. You left me. I didn't know I would survive. I couldn't risk you too, Vareth said softly. You died after becoming the behemoth. Yes. How did you come back? The void brought me back. I didn't die in the traditional sense. She pressed her forehead to his. Never leave me again. He whispered, sighing in her arms. I thought you moved on. I thought you would forget the boy in the mountains. The queens exchanged a look. Sahr'el sighed.
Well,
that settles that. Vealoria nodded. They are bonded. Rajish muttered. Great. Wonderful. Perfect. Then the air went cold. A voice echoed through the chamber. Touching. The torches dimmed. Shadows twisted. And Bishop Corvith stepped out of the darkness, eyes burning with void corruption. You reunite, he hissed. You celebrate. You cling to hope. But there is no hope. He raised his hand. The shadows behind him writhed and he disappeared, but his voice remained, speaking to them through the void. But hope dies tonight. I will unleash every dark creature in the Gloom March. If you wish to stop me, come and find where this all began. Void Rook. Chapter 5. The Healing. The ruins of Noxverum lay silent beneath a sky of bruised violet clouds. Broken towers jutted from the earth like the ribs of a fallen titan, and the once glorious void crystal spires lay shattered across the valley floor. Snow drifted through the ruins, settling on cracked stone and half-buried memories. Vareth stood at the edge of the collapsed throne hall, staring at the remnants of the kingdom he had once called home. Ragesh stood beside him, cloak pulled tight against the cold. "It's smaller than I remember," Ragesh murmured. "You were smaller," Vareth replied. Ragesh snorted. "I was adorable. You were loud. And you were quiet." Vareth's lips twitched. "We balanced each other." Ragesh nudged him. "Still do." They walked deeper into the ruins, boots crunching over frost-covered stone. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the void itself were holding its breath. Vareth paused beside a broken pillar. "I used to hide behind this when the Duke made me practice gravity control." "You used to throw rocks at me from behind it," Ragesh said. "You were slow. I could melt them before they reached me. You were still slow." Ragesh shoved him lightly. "You're impossible." Vareth looked out over the ruins. "I miss them." Rajesh's voice softened. "Me too. Their faces, their voices. Every year it becomes harder to remember." A cold wind swept through the hall, and a voice followed it. "You miss ghosts." Vareth stiffened. Rajesh's hand went to his weapon. Bishop Corvith stepped from the shadows, robes tattered, eyes burning with void corruption. His smile was thin and cruel. "Welcome home, Void Prince, or should I say, Void Rook." Vareth's jaw clenched. "You don't get to say that. You betrayed my father, our people, our kingdom. You don't get to act like you care about ceremony or any of the things you threw away." "Oh, but I do," the bishop said softly. "After all, I raised our kingdom from the dead." He lifted his hand. The shadows behind him twisted. Two figures emerged, tall, regal, familiar. The zombified Void King and the zombified Duke Valor. Ragesh inhaled sharply. Vareth's breath trembled. "Uncle, father." The bishop spread his arms. "Behold the legacy of the void. Behold what your power created." Vareth shook his head. "I didn't create this." "No," the bishop said. "But your transformation as a child, your uncontrolled surge. You killed your mother, your sister, as an infant. There was an experiment. It birthed the Gloom Wraiths. It gave us the weapon we needed. The king rushed it, and we sabotaged it. If not for you, and your first transformation into an unstable void behemoth, the first of your kind, the wound would never have been given the foothold it kept for decades. You made it all possible."
Fear.
"Of you." Ragesh turned to Vareth. "Is that true?" Vareth swallowed. "When I was small, I transformed. I lost control. The bishop laughed. "He killed hundreds, including his mother and sister, and half the southeast quadrant of the Void Ogre Kingdom. Your father, the only known Void Kijin that could absorb pure void energy and matter, was the only one who could stop you. He did so, and spared you, against the Round Table's wishes. He loved you more than he loved his kingdom, and that is why we decided to use his love for you to destroy him." Vareth flinched. Ragesh stepped between them. "He was a child," the bishop sneered. "A child who destroyed half his family." Vareth's voice cracked. "I didn't mean to, I didn't have control. Not then." Ragesh grabbed his shoulder and stared at the bishop anyway. "None of that changes what you've done. You still tried to blow up Bloodhold. You still wanted to kill us all anyway. His past didn't decide your assassination and sabotage, the poisonings and accidental misfortunes of random male nobles in the Meyer tribes." "Yes, I know about that. Can you blame all the chef's poisonings on Vareth? Or on the wound? On your people? A bunch of assassins and outcasts, outlaws and filth." The bishop smirked and raised his hand. The sky darkened. The ruins trembled. and a wave of gloom wraiths rose from the earth, hundreds, then thousands, swirling like a storm of screaming shadows. This, the bishop hissed, is the world's future. A tide of death, a purgation of ogres, a cleansing of the void's mistake. Ragesh drew his weapon. We're not letting that happen. The bishop smiled. You cannot stop it. Vareth stepped forward. His eyes glowed. His breath slowed. The air bent around him. We don't need to stop it. We just need to stop you. The bishop laughed. You cannot control the void. It controls you. Vareth closed his eyes and remembered his father's hand on the void core while he was a child, sleeping, dreaming. His uncle's voice telling him he was loved, eating, arguing, laughing. Sahr'el's kiss, her warm, large, soft body pressed against his as they drifted off to sleep last night. Rajesh's loyalty.
He was angry, yes.
But not only for Vareth, but for the suffering of his own people. He wanted to finish this. The Void Prince opened his eyes, and the Void answered. His body expanded, muscles thickening, horns lengthening, skin darkening to deep violet. But this time, the transformation was smooth, controlled, a river instead of a storm. The Azura Void Berserker rose. Stable, focused, alive. Rajesh stepped back, awe in his eyes. Vareth, the bishop's smile faltered.
Impossible.
Vareth's voice rumbled like distant thunder. You took everything from me. The wraiths surged. Vareth moved. He struck the ground with both fists, sending a shockwave of gravity that obliterated the first wave of wraiths. He leapt into the air, tearing through the swarm with arcs of void light that shredded shadow and rotting bone to ash. Rajesh fought beside him, unleashing torrents of emerald fire that carved through the wraiths like a burning river. The zombified king lunged. Vareth caught him, held him, and whispered, I'm sorry. A burst of void light ended the king's suffering. The zombified duke charged. Rajesh and Vareth struck together, fire and gravity merging in a single devastating blast. The duke fell. The bishop screamed in fury. You cannot kill me. I am the void's chosen. I am the void bishop. Vareth landed in front of him, towering, eyes burning with cosmic fire. There will be no more void ogres after me. The bishop hurled a spear of corrupted void light. Vareth caught it, crushed it, and placed his hand on the bishop's chest. The bishop gasped.
No, no, no.
Vareth inhaled and absorbed him, his soul, his power, his void control. The bishop's scream echoed through the ruins as he dissolved into violet light, drawn into Vareth's core. Silence fell. The wraiths vanished. The sky cleared. Rajesh approached slowly. You okay? Vareth exhaled, shrinking back to his normal form. I'm whole. Rajesh grinned.
Good.
Because we have a problem. Vareth raised an eyebrow. What problem? Rajesh crossed his arms. 2 queens. 3 princesses. And every single one of them wants us married.
To them.
Vareth smiled. Us. You know you're not my type, but I want to continue our friendship. Not to each other, Rajesh snapped.
To them.
Vareth considered this. Sahr'el will kill any woman who approaches me. I knew I was in trouble when she told me she has thought of little else but the taste of my blood for most of her life. Yes. And Kilira will kill anyone who tries to marry you. Yes. And Sahr'el will remain in her room until she dies of boredom, I think. Vareth nodded. We are doomed. Rajesh sighed. Completely doomed. They stood together in the ruins of a fallen kingdom, the wind cold, the sky clear, the future uncertain. But they were alive, and the wound was finally closed.